Hello and welcome back to this tutorial on animating shapes. Hopefully you've watched lesson 1 on variables. We're going to use them a lot in this lesson on animating the hard way. Now, why are we doing it the hard way? Well, I think it's important that you learn how to do it almost manually first, and then we'll see how to do it in a more efficient way. So let's get started. Let's jump in by clicking on animation the hard way. Now, as usual, we've got our starter sketch here, and if I run this, there's no animation, but we've got the 6 circles drawn across the screen. Now, what's happening is we're setting the canvas size, setting the background color, setting the fill color to yellow for the balls, and then we're creating variables. So we're assigning X the value 20, and then we're drawing a circle at 20, 180. Then we assign at 80, and then 140 and 200. And we did this in the last lesson, but I want to change something. See here, X starts at 20 and then we update it by 60, and then we update it by 60 again, and then we update it by 60 again. So instead of writing X equals 80 here, I'm going to write X equals X plus 60, and I'm going to do that on every line of code. Now, this may look strange to you, and if you're used to maths, it is a bit weird because how can X be equal to X plus 60? But remember, this is not an equals sign. It's an assignment operator in Python. So what it means is this first one here on line 4, we say take the value 20 and store it in X. So X gets the value 20. Then on line 6 here, what we do is we say X gets the value of X plus 60. So it evaluates what's on the right hand side first. So if X is currently 20, we add 60 to it, that's 80, and then we assign that 80 back in to the variable X. And so this should do exactly the same thing if I run it again. There we go, same thing. But why am I doing that then? Well, we'll talk about this in the next lesson, but now notice that this line 5 and 6 is actually exactly the same code as line 7 and 8. And then 9 and 10 is the same, 11 and 12 is the same, and of course 13 and 14 are the same. So yeah, you'll see that we're repeating code now, so we can take advantage of that later. But for this lesson, that's not the main thing I want to do. Let's just run this in debug mode, so to make sure that we understand what's happening with the variables and how they're getting updated. So I'm going to tick on run in debug mode and hit start. And when I hit start, the first line of the program is going to run, which set the canvas size to 640 wide by 360 high. If I do step into, it'll run the background command. There we go. Now it'll run the fill command. Now it will run the next line, which means X gets the value 20, and we can see that in our debug information down here. Now we'll draw the circle at where X is, which is 20, 180, and draw it. And now this is the line of code, X equals X plus 60. It will evaluate this X plus 60 first. So X is currently 20, we add 60, that gives us 80, and then we store it back in X. So now X gets 80. And now we're going to draw the circle, but this time X has a value of 80, so we draw it 80 across. Now the same line, X equals X plus 60, or X gets the value X plus 60, will increase 80 to 140. And then we'll draw the circle at 140, 20 with a radius of 20. Update X again, increase it by 60, goes to 200, draw the circle. Update it by 60, goes to 260 now. Draw the circle and you get the picture. Update it, goes to 320, and this is the last line of the program, so it'll draw the circle and the program finishes. All right, so the important thing to think about here is that this is a way of incrementing the current variable by adding to its current value. And so that's a little strange to people if you haven't seen that before or you're from a maths background. But hopefully going through that explains how this works. You take what's on the right hand side and you evaluate that first, and then you store it or overwrite what's back in this variable here. Okay, so that's still not animating, right? When I just run this, it just, oh sorry, I'm in debug mode. Let me stop that, get out of debug mode. When I run it, it just draws all the circles in a row. So I want to introduce you to a new command, the sleep command. And the sleep command just pauses the program for a number of seconds that you supply. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the circle, the first circle here, and then I'm going to sleep for 1 second. And then I'm going to, again, draw the circle, sleep for 1 second. And I might just put a little bit of spacing between here so we can see kind of that these lines all seem very similar. So circle and then sleep, oops, sleep, and then circle and sleep. And I think you're getting the idea, circle and sleep. And then we might just, even at the end, we'll sleep for 1 second as well. So now if I run this, watch what happens. We draw the first circle, wait a second, draw the next one. Whoa, so this is giving us some kind of movement. It's starting to look like some animation, but it's not really animating because we're just drawing a new ball every second. But what if between each of these we cleared the screen? So we don't just draw a ball, then another ball, we clear the screen and then we'll only draw the one ball each time and then it'll look like it's moving. Let's try that. How do we clear the screen? Well, remember this background command here effectively draws a rectangle over everything that's there. So it really is like clearing the screen. So I'm going to do that at the start here before we draw anything. So background, then set X, draw the circle, sleep. And then clear the screen, move X, circle and sleep. Clear the screen, update X, draw the circle in its new position, sleep, and so on. So if I do that before each of these commands, then I'm really clearing the screen. Oops, I put an X in there. And now, when I run the program, let's see what happens. It almost looks like the ball's moving across the screen. So cool. So that really is our first animation. And like I said in the title to this lesson, animation the hard way, the reason we called it that is because it's not ideal to be copying this code, especially when you look, all this code is actually identical. So there's a way we can improve that, but we're going to do that in the next lesson. For the moment, what I want you to do is modify the program so that the ball goes all the way across the screen. And then I want you to play around with some things like what happens if you increase the delay. So this sleep, make it 2 seconds. And what happens if you make that delay 0.1 seconds? And then what happens if you change, see how we're increasing X by 60 pixels every time? Or the number 60, and we're using that as the position, so it changes the circle's position by 60 pixels every time. What if you change that to a bigger number or a lower number? So pause the video, have a go at that, and then come back once you've experimented. Remember, this course is about doing things by yourself, like applying what I'm teaching you here. If you just do what I'm doing, you don't get as much out of it. So try and experiment, try things for yourself. So pause the video and come back when you're done. Cool. All right, now I am going to experiment with some of these things. What happens if I change the value of the sleep? Now here is where I'm going to show you a real good trick about the power of variables. If I want to update this sleep to 2 seconds now, I would have to update it in how many places? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and I've missed some at the top already. So yeah, I think I've got it. Let's try and count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places. And I could easily miss one. So what if I created a variable that told me how many seconds I want to sleep for? So let's create one at the start of the program. And I'm just going to call it delay. Delay, or maybe we'll call it delay seconds so I know that it's in seconds. And I could say this equals 2. And then instead of having sleep 1, I say sleep delay seconds. And so I'm going to change all of my sleep 1s to be sleep delay seconds. I could do a search and replace, but there's not that many of them. There we go. So now I've updated it so that it sleeps for, whenever it says delay seconds, it knows, oh, 2 has been assigned the value delay seconds, so I'm going to use 2. So if I run it now, it's going to draw the circle, wait 2 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then move it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then move it. Now the beauty about this, and hopefully you're starting to see the power, is if I want to update that now and say, all right, change it to be 0.1 seconds, I can just change this to 0.1, and now I can run it again, and it only updates in 0.1. I actually missed one here, didn't I? The first one, I saw that it still slept 4. So change that there, delay a second. So now, look at that, the ball's moving much faster, seeming to be moving. So that's making our animation look better, I think. But it's almost moving too far, isn't it? Like it's a bit jumpy. So instead of increasing it by 60 every time, what if I increased it by like 10 each time? Now again, if I have to update this individually, I've got to update it in 6 places. So why don't I create a variable and I could call it maybe the speed of the ball, because it's kind of like how far it's going. And it's really the speed in the X direction. So I might create a variable called speed X and set that equal to 10. And then what I can do is, instead of updating by 60, I can update by this variable speed X. And so hopefully you're really starting to see the benefit of using variables now. So let me just update all these 60s to be speed X. And did I get them all? All right, let's try this now. So here we go. Yeah. And look, because it was only 10, it only went a little bit across, but it's looking much better. And if I change this now, maybe even this 0.1 to 0.05, even less. And then, yeah, the ball's starting to look smoother again. So there's our first animation. Now, if I wanted this to go all the way across the screen, I would have to copy this, how many times? Like just lots of times, wouldn't I? So I could just keep pasting these in, but obviously this is like a really hard way to do it, and I don't want this many lines of code, and especially when they're all identical, there must be a better way. So that's what I'm going to talk about in the next lesson. But let me just put some more in, start it. There we go, getting the ball moving across the screen. So cool. All right, so make sure you come back, watch the next lesson. We're going to learn how to get rid of all these lines of code and only need these 4 in some kind of loop, because all of these are identical. It's going to be cool. See you in the next video.